Yeah, it's not the first time I see it do that well. It's actually pretty cool. If you consider the fact that the old Frieza Mage was absolutely nightmarish, now this minion heavy, I mean, we haven't seen Violet Teacher come into play, but I wonder what that would have done. That's really curious. Like, against which matchup are you super happy to have 1/1's to spare just to flood the board?
Okay, so we know that Gaara's running Warlock. I would
Hmm.
have to guess that's Handlock just based on his playstyle.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
Paladin. He's not
Paladin
going
is
to
one of
choose
the.
the
Yeah.
Paladin. He really cannot afford to choose the Paladin with how much a rogue just straight up counters it.
Well, he's got Handlock too, which, is also very good against
Hmm.
Murko Rogue. Although I guess most of them now have switched to two saps. Even though that's a big deal, it's still generally not enough to stop your defense line. It's not enough to just send it all back to your hand, even though it can be quite good. But Kisstafer runs two Violet Teachers. Now, Gaara doesn't know that.
Hmm.
I don't know how much of a difference that could make if Gaara were to go for Handlock. Having little 1/1s, what's that do?
I'm not sure it does much. I actually think
Yeah,
Gaara almost
doesn't
is
care.
probably not even hesitating. He has to go Warlock at this point, even if it's Zoo. Paladin is just so badly countered by really any type of rogue. And one of the innate reasons for that is the rogue's hero power takes
Hmm.
out two of the paladin's hero power.
Yeah, my 2 mana for your 4 mana. I'll take that.
Hmm.
He has to spend. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he loses a lot of his because one of the powers of the paladin is actually to get those 1/1s like free fodder to throw away,
Hmm.
to kind of fight for the board. But that's not even an option against a rogue. Like they just deny you that all the way, unless you
Exactly.
can get some kind of good start. And in fact, he went Handlock. And yeah, you were right.
How I
As
say it is
expected.
they're 2 mana mortal coils without the draw
Yeah.
mechanic, just
Oh,
unlimited.
oh, well played. Ooh, two conceals in that Kistifer deck. Interesting.
I
I like.
really think Kisstafer
Yeah.
is not running a Leroy. I'm actually going to take a look at his deck right now. I have to see this.
All right, do that. Just get back to me with the results. I'm really curious now because two conceals. That's an extra slot that you generally don't see freed up in Merkle Rogue decks.
Wow, I've never seen a deck like this.
Is it just Tempo Rogue? Are we looking at Tempo Rogue, guys? Let it be true.
I couldn't even tell you. So it has two preparations, two cold bloods, two conceals, two saps. It has a big game hunter, two
Okay.
shades,
Yeah. Basic.
Leroy. It does have Leroy, but no shadow steps. Two Violet Teachers, a Lotheb, and a Sprint. So this is
Uh,
kind of a mix between Tempo and Miracle, which
yeah.
I
Which
find
is,
very interesting.
and the cool part is that Miracle is becoming more and more like Tempo these days, right?
Mhm.
And that's kind of interesting to see that Kisterfer's taking it even one step further in the Tempo side of things. He daggers up and just passes. Now, Handlock has the Watchers, has the Drake, and wow, even the Taunters at this point. Ooh, picked up a Giant. Not all that useful for now. Mountain Giant would have been so much better for him.
Gaara really needs to get a second 4 drop. How I've always seen it is if Handlock does not get a 4 drop, Miracle has advantage.
Yeah,
If they
and
get
it's
one of their 4 drops, 50-50. If they
yeah,
get two of their 4 drops, hands down,
yeah,
Handlock beats almost all forms of Rogue.
yeah, because you don't have enough saps or removal to deal with that. Now, the Violet Teacher came on to play. Gara's face under the shades of the glasses probably went, "Wait, what?" And now, and now he's probably considering, well, I guess I put down this 4/9 because it's just that strong. I mean, he can always deny the Violet Teacher very easily. He can always combo with the Mortal Coil. He doesn't have it now, but he very easily could, or just buff it up with Definitive Argus and be done with that thing. Now, I'm curious how Kistifer approaches the Drake. Does he send it back? I mean, it's not even taunted up. Does appeal to him probably. Um,
Hmm.
it's interesting. It's a really weird spot he's in right now because he can't play a second Violet Teacher and conceal.
I could see him playing the second Violet Teacher, though. That might force an early Argus onto that Drake, allowing him to either sap it or kill them both off. I'm trying to see how, though, how it could be done. So if he Arguses, a Drake will be at 10 health, attacking in, being at 7.
Yeah, if he saps conceals for whatever reason, he could get 2/1/1s that are pretty irrelevant at this point.
Hmm.
So it looks like he's actually going to go for the second teacher, try to put some pressure on the Warlock right now to use his removal. Now, Kisterfer knows that Mortal Coil is a possibility, but he's taking the chance. He knows he's going to be losing, or at least likely to be losing, a Violet Teacher.
As scary as it must seem to Gaara, I think his best option is to face his Twilight Drake.
Yeah, at this point, makes a lot of sense.
Especially
Hasn't found a second 4-drop.
the main reason for that is because he does have actually two Shadow Flames in hand, so he can either combo with Leroy later, or he can Shadow Flame one of his own minions, especially the Ancient Watcher the following turn, if necessary.
Yeah, like he's not very afraid of much right now because he knows that even the 1/1s get spawned, just Shadow Flame takes care of that. The 4/9 that's there might get sapped though. There's a possibility that Gaara just says, "Nope, you're going back home," and not Gaara, but Kisstafer says that, and looks like he does actually. Wow, is he going
This
to
is going to
use
be a
his
big
3/1
board.
with the SI7 agent to kill off the Drake? Killing off that Drake would remove any chance. Well, I mean, Ancient Watcher Shadow Flame is definitely possible, but it doesn't finish off your Valid Teacher. So does he use the SI7 here?
I actually think that would be his best move currently. What are his other options? He could have killed it off with the Violet Teacher, both Violet Teachers, that is, but that would be really susceptible to Hellfire.
Yeah, it's a bit too vulnerable. I mean, you're already vulnerable to Shadow Flame at this point. Well, it's funny how those Valid Teachers are actually being a thorn in Gaara's side. He might sacrifice. He might just wipe
But
the entire board at this point.
how
Does he
I see it, if he's
conceal?
scared of Shadow Flame, why would he not kill that Drake? Because all will need the Drake run into the Violet Teacher and then a 4-mana Shadow Flame, and it's
Because
over.
if he kills the Drake with the SI7, what happens is he doesn't have a stealthed board. Whereas now he does, and if no Shadow Flame is used, then that's a huge amount of damage coming in. Yep, and that's exactly what he does. Stealth everything up. Now, if Shadow Flame is used, at least he cycles off Blood Mage, I guess.
Exactly. This is an unquestionable Shadow Flame. The only question that does remain is, what does he Shadow Flame?
Watcher or
Sure, his own Drake.
huh? Interesting. Well, he pulled off a Mountain Giant, so
I would
there's an
expect him to actually Shadow Flame his Watcher at in this instance.
yeah. There's really nothing else you're gonna do anyway this turn. I mean, I guess you could life tap it out, but with that would put you on 10.
But once again, I'm sure he's scared of some Leroy Shadow Step prep eviscerate, and it's over.
Yeah. That's true because we have to look at this from Gaara's perspective at this point. He knows that his opponent has been very aggressive, and he hasn't been able to capitalize on the handlock power of taunting up all the time.
I actually take back the move I just said.
Go
I think
ahead
what he should do is play Sun Fury Protector,
and Shadow
taunting up
Flame it.
his own minion, and then Shadow Flame it.
Yeah, because it
Because
kills
Shadow
the,
Flame
the same amount of stuff, right?
Exactly, and it keeps him
Oh,
at 3 health, which is no problem when he has a Soulfire in hand.
oh,
But at the
oh,
same time, protects him from that possible combo.
that's evil. That's evil, but it works, and I like it. It's really effective. But he does go for the Watcher after all. Wants to damage the Vile Teacher down to 1 health, or doesn't see necessarily the Sun Fury value there. That would have been an incredible Sun Fury Protector value.
That actually took me quite a while to see.
Yep. Wow.
But I guess he does value the Sun Fury Protector over the Argus just based on its mana cost.
Yeah. I like Kisstafer's deck because he runs BGH, so he knows, well, I mean, he obviously knows that Handlock is a bad matchup. That's pretty obvious to him. Ragnaros is getting run all over the place, so he runs 2 Saps and 1 BGH, which makes his Handlock matchup actually bearable, as opposed to completely atrocious. Like a lot of people who make rogue decks, or at least attempts or similar decks to Miracle Rogue, say, I forsake the handlock deck. I don't try to play around it because I know that it's a bad matchup inherently. I'll focus on all the other ones. But Kisstafer has a deck here which seems to counter handlock quite effectively, in some way at least.
Now, can you see Kisstafer running his Violet Teacher in order to wipe out this Drake? Or does he realize that he doesn't have many options at this point and just goes face, hoping to get a free BGH off next turn?
Oh, Gaara has too many cards in hand for him to sacrifice the Vile Teacher at this point. I think you have to... Well, then again, you're afraid of Molten Giant falling down, especially if you hit him down to 13 health. You bring him in the possibility of taunting up, and then there's a possibility of follow-up Giants beyond the 1 Molten.
But here's what I was thinking. Instead of dropping him down to 13, you drop him down to 14 with just the Violet Teacher. That way, at max, only 1 Molten Giant could come down. So it would actually... I'm sorry, it would actually be max 1 Giant this turn.
Yeah.
That way it would actually eliminate the possibility of him playing both a Mountain Giant and a Molten.
And a Molten
or
Giant,
2 Moltens. Yep.
Yeah, I can totally see that. It makes a lot of sense. Now, does he BGH or does he want to Gadget Sand and Sap? That's really like interesting to me.
I
Because
really
BGH does remove
think
it outright.
because that Soulfire just came down, I really
Yeah,
think the sap at this point is more has more efficacy. The
he's
reasoning is because that big game hunter will get value on a taunted 8/8, and then he only has to deal with one later.
yeah, and there's
Meanwhile,
also go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, nothing interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say if he does decide to big game hunter this, he has to worry about a possible double molten giant later in the game, both being taunted up. But if he does it now, he's not gonna really have to worry about that mountain giant again. It's more
Yeah,
likely that Gaara's gonna be forced into playing molten, and so really by sapping this, it practically kills that one giant off.
yeah, that's true. Because it can't really be replayed as long as you have too few cards in hand. It costs you so much mana. It's like a huge tempo loss just replaying that thing. So yeah, Sap in this case is essentially a BGH that draws you a card.
Oh, and a quick mention: everyone should tweet at HearthStats if they would like any of their tweets featured on stream. Any constructive criticism on minor Noxiouses, any recommendations, how to make the stream better, anything you want to say about the players, feel free to tweet at HearthStats on Twitter.
Yeah, they will be hand selected, and if we from our thrones judge them worthy of reading, we will read them.
Yeah, be
So,
nice.
uh, all right. So, wow, Big Game Hunter and Shade of Naxxramas on this board, and the Shadow Flame was discarded through the Soulfire last time from Gaara, so that's a bit unfortunate for him because he probably would love to use them right now, but he's going to be forced to Twilight Drake and Earthling Farseer to counter, and he's still afraid of the double Leroy, isn't he? Yeah, all day, every day. By the way, he did BGH instead of SAP. By the way, hadn't mentioned it, but he did go for that play instead.
So, what do you think about his decision to use BGH over SAP? Would you prefer Kisstafer's route, or would you prefer to have sapped and kind of taken a little bit slower?
I might have, oh, but maybe because of the cold blood, he wasn't. Well, he didn't have cold blood at that point. I mean, I'm really surprised he went for the BGH because he
Oh,
could have
he's
put down a
using his
4/4
sap
anyway.
right now.
Ooh,
No, no, no.
that is
I
no,
really
no.
dislike.
But he's got two eviscerates left. Am I right? Am I wrong? Because he could sprint into them very easily.
Yeah.
So, because he's got no more health back. So Gaara, unless he runs Jiraxis, Alex Straza, or gets a Siphon Soul off the top, it's gonna be a bit troublesome. But he looks. Gaara only drew 13 cards, so the odds of him having giants again, they're a bit slim. But he's been holding on to a lot of cards so far, so he could assume that those are giants.
I think
Could make
Kisstafer's
sense.
forced just to go all out at this point.
Welcome to
I don't
Rogue
know.
against Handlock. Oh
See,
Lord.
I still dislike his combo of plays, but it may very well pay off. Just the fact that he used Sap, he had the opportunity to practically use Sap as a kill on that Mountain Giant, but instead he used it on the Drake later.
Yeah,
He's
prevents
going to
him
be
from
facing
actually
down two
regaining
more.
board.
So now here's an interesting question. Whoa, 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 Drake.
Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter because he's going double Molten into Defender into Soulfire on the Gadge. I'd assume,
Gaara,
at
I
least.
think Gaara had one possible play there, and
Which was?
he should have, instead of using Drake there, I think he should have double gianted Argist and then actually used a Leroy to kill off that last 4/2, giving Gaara two taunted up things when Kisstafer had no board. So instead of wiping the board, he, I guess, decided
Just,
to.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, keeping the, okay, so losing the Drake to just use the Soulfire instead and wipe
Mhm.
the board completely. But now Gaara is probably very afraid at least of direct damage, knowing that two of his trades have not been played yet. He doesn't know a thing about the fact that, Kisstafer has none of those.
So I like this Leroy play to wipe the field, or at least wipe a decent portion of the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna work. One giant will stay alive though, as far as I know.
Let's see. Yeah, he will not actually have enough mana to throw down that SI, so one giant will stay alive.
Yeah, but he can sprint SI7 agent next turn to actually
Exactly.
finish off the job. But now Gaara's probably breathing a little. Well, I don't know if I'd be breathing a little better at night right now, considering the fact that I'm on 5 health and no eviscerates have been played. And if I draw Siphon Soul, I have to Siphon Soul my defender.
Hmm.
Wonder what he picks up here.
Is there any card that Kisstafer could draw to finish off this game?
Um, to finish off the game immediately, he can deal 2 through the SI7, so...
I actually think Prep would do it because he
Yeah,
would prep into Sprint, giving him 3 mana left, SI to do it, and then an Eviscerate would end it.
Yeah, but he's 1 turn away from death, actually. Prep is probably... that's not gonna do it.
Not
Or does
enough.
he... Yeah, it's... Wait.
That power overwhelming is going to kill him.
Uh-oh. Oh, that was a really close call.
What a
Gaara.
game.
Oh.
Gaara with the absolute biggest top deck, and he has no idea how big that card was to finish off this game. I'm sure he was hoping for Siphon Soul, but it
Yeah.
turns out that power overwhelming will end it.
Yeah, because he could not life tap, right? Like, there was no way for him to ever get another card after this. And this will be the game. Gaara taking it up against Kisstafer. It's very, like, how do we call this deck?
I don't even know, but in the words of Admirable, that was a huge draw.
Yeah, I'm just really impressed. I mean, Gaara was giving up. You could see it on his face, or at least the facial expressions. He was like, "Okay, I'm dead to double Leroy. I'm dead to every single turn. I'm dead to double Leroy. Okay, I'm just gonna wait."
That was an unbelievable game. I got to give it to both players. They played it so well.
Yeah.
Both of them made plays that I personally would have never done, but it seemed to work out just in the end. It was wow.
Yeah, and it's also awesome to see Sprint being used by someone because it works amazingly well with preparation, especially in this deck, which doesn't necessarily rely on digging through your entire deck for a Shadow Step combo. You can use prep pretty liberally to trigger combos, or just on turn 4, prep Sprint, draw 4 cards, replenish your hand. And a lot of tempo rogue decks have this massive problem where they do eventually run out of cards. So they're forced to run, Gnomish Inventors, Azure Drake, but that's not at all what Kisstafer is trying to do. He's sticking to the Gadget Stand, using a Sprint with the preps as well. I really like this approach.
So Kisstafer's last deck, do you expect it to be Handlock or Zoo in this instance?
I hope for him that it's that it's handlock, but I mean it could be either way. And before it's a void color deck, and we've never seen it before with Sacrificial Pact. Let's go, Kiss! Surprise me again.
But again, at the same time, Zoo, in my opinion, I think is actually 50-50 versus Handlock. It really comes down to does Gaara draw Molten Giants? If not, Kisstafer wins.
Yeah, I
it
prefer
really is as simple as that many of the times.
Yeah, but so, I guess it is a coin flip, but either way. But it is handlock based on these starting hands. I would assume both are running the same thing. But Gaara has a BGH.
Wow.
Wow, indeed.
Did Gaara actually decide to keep his whole hand?
It seems like he seems satisfied. I can't. Yeah, looks like it. Oh Lord.
That's a little questionable in my opinion. Obviously, Big Game Hunter is big. Twilight Drake you want to keep. The Owl goes good to silence a Twilight Drake, but then I can see keeping the Farseer to have a turn 3 play, but I still don't see that as being enough when this matchup really comes down to
we're not
getting
looking at
out
the
those
games
early
right now.
Giants.
I'm still looking at the hands. I don't know if your display is the same as mine. We're not on the battle screens yet. And there we are. All right, little technical delay there. All right, so basically, I think the reason he actually kept the hand was because anyway, you're going to be 2 BGHs.
2 Big Game Hunters. Wow.
Good game, ladies and gentlemen. this is over.
It's sad,
wow.
but yeah.
This is a massive decision. I've seen Firebat play a Druid deck, and the name I believe was called Harvest Golem Doesn't Win Games. Yeah, and the same idea was used as, if I'm going to make a 3-drop in my deck, it's going to have to be something that impacts the board. And with Handlock being as popular as it is right now in tournaments, BGH everywhere now, I guess. Wow, this is huge.
So also Gaara deciding to coin out.
Oh, I like it. Just this is so devastating.
Oh, this is mean. This is really just mean what he's doing with his hand.
I can't even. And now Kisstafer's probably like, oh, okay, so he has 1 BGH.
He's already shaking his head after seeing that.
Yeah, no, he's gonna
know that Gaara has a second Big Game Hunter just waiting.
All right, so we have to have the burp man on the board right now. Sludge Belcher might come out to at least stop the potential. Because the way that works is that if you play Sludge Belcher and they both, the Twilight Drake attacks into it, and then it gets coil and the 4-2 finishes off the 4-1, then you can always coil the remaining 1 health on the Big Game Hunter. So it's probably what he's going to end up doing, I believe.
So you
Yep.
look at Sludge Belcher. I was actually taking a look at the Ancient Watcher taunting it up because it's just a little bit more awkward in my opinion. Well, no, I think Belcher was actually the more correct play in that situation in terms of just awkwardness for Gar to deal with.
Yeah, it kind of is. But at the same time, I guess you could make an argument. Wow, does he use Iron Beak Owl ever here? Do you ever just go through?
No, I don't think you can on the Belcher
Even
like
with a
this.
VGH and a Molten Giant?
This is why Belcher has
Uh,
become one of the not only one of the best cards, but just the most fun.
uh,
I've always said if like for newer players, it's better. It's wait, what's the word I'm saying? If you have the choice between putting yourself in a good position and putting your opponent in an awkward position, it's always better to put your opponent in the awkward.
yeah,
And that's what
obviously.
Belcher does every single time it comes into play. It's
Yeah.
so just weird to deal with.
And it's funny how it's not overpowered either. Like, I don't feel like it breaks anything. Oh, we're looking at a pretty bursty hand here. Double Soulfire Leroy. We need a little bit more here from Kisstafer to be able to pack a punch. Although, how much punch exactly? Wow.
So I think he's forced to tap in this instance.
Yeah, he might have to just taunt up the Ancient Watcher to stop the aggression a bit. Although he might... No, he probably doesn't want to keep it for the Moltens. He can get Definitive Argus a little later for that. It is not necessary.
Do you think would you Soulfire the 3/3?
I'd think about it. At least for a little moment. Now, I don't know if I'd do it, because it's probably not the best use of them. Considering the amount of bigger minions. Like, Double Soulfire kills a giant, essentially. He's got the Siphon Soul. He can deal with quite a huge amount of threats right now. Wow.
I
Okay.
think Kisstafer might realize, based on just his current position, that it's going to come down to a Leroy power overwhelming
Yep.
kill.
I mean, a good Shadow Flame here off the Watcher is not terrible, right? Although he probably wants to keep that for a giant removal. He could probably justify Shadow Flaming the Watcher, then Soul Firing the final
I
Twilight
think
Drake.
a power overwhelming draw would have made it, I think, worthwhile. But in this instance, I don't know. He's such in a weird position. That's why I love the handlock versus handlock matchups. There's never a 100, or most of the time, there's just not a 100% correct play.
Well, I believe
just-
there is. It's just really awkward because you never quite know what the opponents have in hand. It's really weird in that way. Like, do you play the giant? I mean, you have to play the mountain here, but at least
just
he'll have Moltens.
Yeah, with so
later.
many cards in hand, not only for yourself but your opponent, there's just so many things that could possibly happen. That is just always hard to determine exactly what's the best course of
Yeah.
action. You have to worry about board clears through Shadow Flame. You have to worry about the Leroy combo. You have to worry about some power overwhelming on a Sylvanas to take your own guy.
You have to worry. Oh, he's playing around the. Is he thinking about maybe not taunting up both of those guys later? Nope, never mind. Yeah, all right. So at least the Watcher will be watching as the two Drakes slam into it, assuming no removal is used on it. Wait. If he plays a Mountain Giant here and
Mountain Giant Shadow Flame and just wipe the
Yeah.
entire board.
BGH, who needs that? Whoever spoke of BGH, heathens, and
So-
Definitive Argus is not here.
Do you think Gaara should opt to run into face here, forcing out the double Molten Giant?
I believe it makes a lot of sense considering he's got the BGH, but he might be setting up for a one-turn lethal as opposed to letting it draw out for a few turns.
Now that's interesting because he does have a Shadow Flame in hand. I think it might have been a better play to force
go
out
face?
those double Moltens and just because once the double Moltens come out with but at the same time he might not want to run into his own or run into a possible Shadow Flame.
Yeah, that could be problematic if a Shadow Flame comes out and then he loses one Drake and the other one is very low on health. Could get Iron Beak Owled even. So, Well, there is definitely a Shadow Flame after Leroy consideration here. He could go Leroy if he wants to wipe the board, Shadow Flame, then Soulfire the second Drake, or Siphon Soul.
Siphon Soul.
And so he does, and uses the coil to finish off the second one. That's gonna be tricky though. Oh, he Soulfires the 1 health minion. I
And he
thought he
loses
would
the
leave it
Molten
up.
Giant. That's
Devastating.
not at all what he wanted to see go. He really wanted the Mortal Coil or even the Shadow Flame to disappear there.
Wow. I'm actually surprised that he used the Soulfire here. I would have just left the Owl there for a turn
Lothep
and
comes
maybe get a
out here.
coil.
I think that's a pretty intelligent play.
Yep. Yeah, that's very good. It's setting up 5 extra damage for next turn. He hasn't found Leroy yet, so he's only sitting on Power Overwhelming, but he can definitely get it out unless Soulfire is paid for in blood at this point. Leroy Jenkins could be used, I guess, to wipe Lotheb, although that feels absolutely awful.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem right.
What seems right here, though?
I hate to say it,
Everything.
but I think he has to tap for something. Tap for a Sun Fury.
And then Soulfire Lotheb with for 5? Like, that, ugh. I mean, you play it, but... Yeah, I mean, Twilight Drake or Giant at this point. Or he has to sacrifice Leroy into that Lotheb, which is disgusting.
Yeah, see, the issue with tapping right there is now all Gaara needs is Leroy.
Leroy, PO.
Yeah, Leroy Power Overwhelming, Leroy Soulfire. So
And
by tapping it, absolutely forces him to use the Leroy in order to wipe that Lotheb off.
and yeah, that is not funny. Now we have a power overwhelming body on the board. So the PO could be used for whatever reason. He can at least coil it on the following turn. So that's at least decent. Ooh, the other mountain. Oh. I almost want Kisstafer not to play his Molten Giant. I don't want to see the look on his face when it gets BGH'd. I just don't want to be there when that
Oh,
happens.
Gaara's a genius.
Oh,
Not
this is
taunting up that
evil.
Mountain Giant for the Black Knight gets no value.
And yeah, and Kisstafer realizes it and he's like, frustrating.
It's one option. Ooh, the Jiraxis could make a difference.
Really?
Yeah. So here's what I'm seeing right now. Is there
Yeah.
any reason not to tap? 14 health loses to Leroy, Power Overwhelming, Soulfire.
But how do
But
you
I get
taunt up?
versus 12.
How do you live?
I think a tap is worth it unless he's scared of the Leroy.
Oh,
Leroy. Oh,
nice pickup, sir. I would like to congratulate you on your top deck. This is amazing. Well, that changes everything, I believe. I believe it just might. Well, it changes at least a little bit.
I think I hate to say it, but big game Black Knight, Soulfire.
Yeah, that is absolutely disgusting. Oh, wow. Will he do it, though?
I
It
think
makes
he's
too much
taking the
sense not
risk.
to do.
But at the same time, Kisstafer is in a kind of a slower position, which he does need to take risks in terms of getting stuff on the board to
Yeah,
possibly
he is
kill him.
not playing the beatdown, and he loses Jiraxis. He would have rather... Oh no.
Yeah, Jiraxis was the card that could have saved him, I think.
Oh,
Taking it
this...
into a slower ended game.
But he is afraid of Leroy, which hasn't been seen yet, but Ragnaros gets found. Wow. So wait, if he silences the Watcher and Power Overwhelmings it, how much damage are we looking at right now? We're looking at 8 from just that, so Definitive Argus would make it 9. Maybe a little too risky.
Yeah.
Do you ever PO Shadow Flame here?
Let's see.
I mean, you could even
Is
like...
there any good Ragnaros play that he could do at the moment?
I don't like it very much. I probably would just silence off. I mean, he could BGH the Molten Giant easily. There are multiple ways for Gaara to approach this, really. BGH is one of them. Silence off the Watcher, Power Overwhelming, Attack Face, then Shadow Flame also wipes the board.
I
So
actually
there's-
like tapping here and then BGH. See if he can get something to follow up that BGH afterwards. Unless he's actually considering just silence his own Watcher, hit it, and then taunt both his Owl and his Watcher back up.
Kisstafer's soul is about to be crushed if that BGH comes out. Your soul shall suffer indeed.
Just watch his face as this comes
Oh
out.
no. Yes. Go. 5, 4. Oh. Ah! That was priceless. I could read his
That was
lips,
just
and now
like,
he's.
what?
Oh, this is good.
Wow.
Oh, I am so. Oh, I wouldn't like to be in Kisstafer's position right now. This is absolutely atrocious.
He's heartbroken with that move.
I would be. I would be more than heartbroken. I think I just. I don't know what I'd do.
Now, do
I
you
think
think
his
Gar's
face
choice
summed it
to
up.
use Siphon Soul versus silencing his own watcher trading was better, or
Silence goes through taunts, right? So you could always use that as a proxy, go through the face, assuming you need the Leroy to go through for whatever reason.
that's actually a good point.
But now this should be over with Ragnaros plus Silence the Watcher.
Ragnaros silence, that's game over. So it
Yep.
looks like Gar will take the series 3-1.
Yep, Gaara winning the first of the best of fives that we're going to be seeing today in the round of 8. So, grats to Gaara and the Ragnaros finish. Warlock bits over the place. Well, those were really nice games. Now, it's interesting to see that both Warlocks were running BGH as a preparation.